what a bleak day.
Welcome to a rather dull and cloudy Hexworthy on Dartmoor. The good news is the forecast is for the weather to improve as the day goes on.
Still more people coming.
For the walk today, Sarah, our walk leader, has put together a route which visits several fairly well-known tin mines in the area. She was also convinced that due to the type of walk that this was, there would only be a few people attending. She even persuaded her husband Jeff to come along, and he's not that keen on walking in large groups. It's quite ironic. But people kept coming and coming and coming, eventually making a total of 20 walkers.
It's a figure of 8, more or less, figure of 8 walk. We're going to go, and it's a walk of exploration in terms of the tin mines. So there will be a bit of looking around, so I hope everyone's dressed warmly. And there will be some rough moorland walking, so if you have got poles and they're not out of the cars, it would be a good idea to bring your poles. So we're going to look at some tin mines. We're going to go to Gobbet mine first, then we're going to go round to Sherborton, do a little bit of an arc around, come back to Fairy Bridge. From Fairy Bridge we're going to walk up the back here along the track, and then up Tur Hill, which is the hill over there, and we're going to go to 2 mines. One's Hen's Roost and the other is Hoot and Wheels, names to conjure with, and I'll try and tell you things as we go about the mining, and I have David here who's going to help out with some of the information. Yeah. So we have got faces here who we don't know. If I could just introduce a friend of mine, Carolyn, who's come along as a guest. Carolyn's written a children's book that will be out shortly. Carolyn,
she has in the boot.
Carolyn's walked across the Lamacan Desert with 32 camels. It's a desert that's never been crossed before, the desert of death. She was the first woman to do it. Well, and she got Woman Explorer of the Year from National Geographic.
Oh. I've known Sarah for probably about 45 years. Yeah. Sarah has been an inspiration to me. She's led me astray.
We'll shortly be coming to the Gobbet tin mine workings. Wind noise is a bit of a problem at the moment, so I'm going to talk over some of Sarah's commentary. Some of these mine workings date back to as early as the 1700s. Most of the serious mining occurred in the 19th century. Records indicate from 1836 to 1874. But tin mining on Dartmoor may go back a lot earlier, even to before the birth of Christ. This fine granite portal is the face of a girt or open cast mine working which has been adapted to carry a water pipe from the Swinken Reservoir to the Venford Reservoir. The Gobbet tin mine covers quite an extensive area, and sometimes it's difficult to tell what are mine workings and what is natural moorland. We started at quite a reasonable pace and unfortunately missed some of the aspects Sarah and David wanted to cover. So we eventually ended up backtracking and after some searching found what they were looking for.
Yeah, no, I did.
Grinding wheel or
So they've got the 2 grinding wheels, the one there, and then this one here, and in this one you can see the peg holes, where they connected one to the other.
Oh. And that one, Sarah?
These ones here are where the stamps came down.
I was going to say these look like pounding holes.
Yeah, so the stamps come down, the tin goes in there, and these hollows get bigger and bigger as the stamps crush the ore. And then these are the wheels. This one and that one over there would have been together. I can't remember which was top and which was bottom.
That's the top.
That's the top.
That's the top,
Where
right.
the posts go in for the horses to pull them
Pull it
round.
round. So sorry we missed those on the way.
Yeah.
Because this would be more people. I don't think
Here's the molestones. The ingots weighed 150 pounds.
Anyway.
We now continue on our journey, heading for Sherborton. Jill is very protective towards some of the local frog spawn, almost coming to blows.
Hey, what do you mean? That
Well,
makes
they
them
don't
grow
wanna
bigger
be.
that way.
I'm told that this area was the chosen spot for the Buckfast Abbey monks to bring their beehives to gather Dartmoor pollen for their honey production. This cut timber on the side of the road seems to have been here for quite a while, but I expect that sometime in the future it will be picked up by a transporter. The Ordnance Survey map indicates stepping stones, and they are still here to the north of the bridge. The river is the Swinkham. Sherborton Farm has broadened its horizons. It's become a timber producer, meat seller, a seller of reformed granite, as well as providing holiday lets. A lesson in diversity. Jeff seems to be in his element, talking to a builder or the owner about the barn he's renovating. It looks like he may be there for some
Heading
time.
across the open moorland now.
I'm not a huge fan for walking across open moorland, but we have an objective goal, the tin mines. With a relatively large number of walkers, playing catch-up is always a necessity. The track across the moor is fairly easy to follow, and shortly we'll be changing direction, heading initially for Swinkham Farm and Fairy Bridge.
I went up one day to walk from Crackington Haven.
In front of us, we can now see Down Ridge, Sker Gut and Tur Hill. We will be ascending slightly to the left of Sker Gut. Swinkham Farm is now on our left, just out of picture.
Coming up to Fairy Bridge shortly. Swinkham Farm. Working up until the early 70s, so I understand. All gone nearly. Such a shame. I suppose that's life and that's history.
Shortly, Sarah will give you some background history of the structure.
Yeah.
Tiny little shoe shop in Dawlish.
This is John Bishop's house. Not the comedian. But that is, yeah,
They certainly won't have all his cons.
he was a ditcher and a stonemason. So the good stonework that you see around here is his work, and you can see his house is quite well made, or what's left of it. And there's some gate posts that up
I
there
think Sarah is referring to gate posts at the end of a walled lane, which are too far away for us to see today.
So John Bishop.
These are fives.
It's worth having a look round the front as well.
Do you think? This is doorway.
Yeah.
He wasn't very tall, was he? This is doorway.
Well, I suppose if you didn't have all those rocks there.
You see how tall they were, though?
To get through the window.
They were always very short, you see. That's why the Cornish were so short. They made good prop forwards, you see.
I'm never quite sure what's true.
As Sarah was saying, I'm never sure whether Graham is serious or not. From Swinkham Farm, it's just a short distance to Swinkham or Fairy Bridge.
Probably not great.
Originally provided in 1892, it has been replaced several times since that date. The latest version is 2015. Fairy name came about in the 1900s as a deity or protection for travellers. Sometimes during the early 2000s, a small figure of a fairy appeared under the bridge, and it remained there for approximately 8 years, protecting people crossing the river. It then disappeared
Margaret might know, Graham.
and was twice replaced. But on each occasion, it once again disappeared. The stepping stones were at one time the only method of getting across the river.
Just note the huge great pieces of granite that form the step from the ground up to the bridge. Colossal.
We have a fair number of walkers here today. If I want to get them all crossing the bridge, I'll have to speed them up a little. Our next stop is Dolly Treble's house. Quite a looker in her time, so I'm told.
And if you make
With a last look at Fairy Bridge, we head out over the moor.
Dolly Treble. Apparently Dolly was a very attractive girl, and there are lots of legends about us. They're probably just legends rather than truth.
A very what girl?
Attractive.
Oh, attractive. Well, it was wasted up here, wasn't it?
Well, she was so attractive.
You never
that,
know.
Truett. I can't
Jill, when
remember.
we did the recce, Sarah said, very attractive, just like Jill. And I knew immediately what she was talking about.
And I think the Prince Regent took precedence. Now, whether this is true or not, I don't know. But she lived into her 80s. There are records about her birth and her death. And this was one of the houses that she lived in. And it also said she worked in the mine, but whether that's true or not.
Would this have predated her?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, so it's an old cottage, but it is said. So it's called...
She was what period? Victorian or?
I don't know. I
Right.
don't know. I should have looked all these dates up, but I haven't got those with me.
would be early 1800s.
The fireplace supports still remain, one each side.
Floor needs a sweep.
Very briefly, we're walking on the Dartmoor Way.
Where the valley is.
Very steep hill we've just
We've now
ascended.
gone across the base of Tur Hill and started ascending down ridge, and will shortly be at Sker Ford. We're about halfway up, and the views from here are well worth a look.
But they tend to, companies tend to stick. Well, they do, although our company doesn't. Oh, right, okay.
Some well-known features can be
Down the
seen.
valley.
The North Hessery Tormast, Belliver Tor and Laughter Tor are just some of them. Ascending down ridge is quite demanding, but soon we are approaching Sker Ford. Easy enough to cross, you just need to watch your step. Before we get to the Hen's Roost tin mine, it's perhaps time to define what types of basic tin mining we have in Devon. The emphasis is on the word's basic description. Streaming This involves the collection of alluvial deposits from a river or a stream, then diverting the stream to wash away the unwanted lighter minerals which leave behind the heavier tin-bearing ore. Open cast mining. This is the most common technique that extracts the tin from the mineral ore deposits, which are found relatively close to the ground surface, known as beamworks. These create massive gullies, as we see on the moor, digging vertical shafts, following the tin ore vein horizontally at various levels. Some mines did 1, 2, or all 3 methods. The further we go back in time, the more likely streaming will be the most dominant way of extracting tin.
I think this is the Hen Roost mine workings.
This mine was a mixture of open cast mining and shaft mining. The most well-known shaft was the Taylor shaft.
Come a bit closer, you'll appreciate the scale of this.
It's only in Newquay. I was on a park.
This is Hen's Roost mine, and Taylor shaft is down here. There's a big shaft, but you can see the extent of the workings here.
There's no shaft down there anymore, but there is a shaft further down there with a fence round it.
Right.
And you can hear the water. I think you can hear the water running at the bottom of that one.
Yeah, yeah.
If there was a shaft up there, it's long gone. I expect there were shafts all over.
I think
The late 19th century map shows the shaft being 2/3 of the way up the gully, but there was probably more than one shaft.
It's a great place for a picnic in the summer as well.
Here.
Okay. Yeah, we're above that.
As you can hear, there was a lot of discussion as to where various shafts may have been sited.
I know there's a shaft down there with a fence round it.
What is also interesting is that there was a tramway from the Houghton Wheels mine to the wheelhouse at Dry Lake. This 10-metre wide chasm must have been quite a scar on the landscape when it was being mined. Fortunately, nature has done its work and reclaimed the scar.
I think we're on our way to the Houghton Wheel now. What a great day. This area here is known as the Flat Rods, which connects these two mines, that's
The Hen's Roost
and the Houghton Wheel.
So why are they called flat rods? Flat rods were used for communicating power from a water wheel or engine horizontally to another part of the mine, or in this instance between two mines, similar to the on-screen diagram. I understand this was extremely noisy.
Looking the other way from where we've come.
Getting back briefly to the Hen's Roost mine, I find the name Hen's Roost quite fascinating, and although I've tried to research how the name evolved, nothing has turned up. I leave it to your own imagination.
And they went round, and that's like a centrifuge.
Oh, right, okay.
So the heavier particles are separated out into the tin.
Okay.
And it was used as in the Second World War as for artillery practice.
Okay.
So a lot of it got destroyed because the Americans were. They're buddles.
What?
They're called buddles. Buddles. B-U-D-D-L-E-S.
Right.
Circular, and they rotate.
Yeah.
Had a covering on. The tin went in, and because of the rotation, a little bit like a centrifuge,
Yeah.
the heavier particles of tin separated out. So the tin could be moved away then.
Right.
On screen are pictures taken of the Houghton Wheels mine workings in 1914. All the buildings and mining facilities have all but disappeared, and as Sarah has said, some of the area was used for army training during the war. We are now making our way towards other parts of this disused mine. The Obrook was fundamental to the working of the mines. It was not only used for the mine processes, but also the everyday needs of the miners: washing, drinking water, and cooking. Scattered around are the remains of various buildings. This one is the mine house. This was used as a workshop on the ground floor, a carpenter's I believe, with accommodation for miners on the first floor.
To work in the mine, and he'd written a booklet on it, which I've never come across. But that was part of the Gross family, so it sort of went down through several generations of Grosses running it. And up on that nearest spoil mound, there used to be a little oak cross, quite tatty.
David was referring to the Gross family, who were extremely influential and involved in the running of Devon's tin mines. That's Ambrose Gross and Bessie and William Gross, who were married. We're shortly going to have our lunch break, which is close to the aqueduct base remains. Whilst our walkers are satisfying their food and drink needs, it's a good time to highlight that aspect of the mine workings. This is the remains of the viaduct base structure that connected the water viaduct to the water wheel. The water wheel was sited near the dry lake area, just down from this spot. This again is the remains of another building, the iron house, used as a workshop on the ground floor, with this time temporary accommodation for miners on the first floor. On screen are the full old maps showing the layout of the mines in this area. Map 1 shows the tramway, the mine house and the iron house, the aqueduct and engine houses and the Obrook stream. And on map 2, the various shafts in the mines are indicated, including the Sker shaft. I've shown parts of the maps earlier. All the mines are in close proximity to each other and loosely connected by the Obrook stream.
This one is Horseford Cross. Horseford's down in the valley on the Obrook, or it used to be, but got washed away in about 1965. So you can't cross the Obrook at that position anymore.
Is that another mine here?
No, I suspect it is some mine workings, yeah. And these were re-erected by crossing. So he found where they were sited and to put the iron strapping on, metal strapping. And there's a scareful.
As you've probably noticed, we've left the tin mines area and are now on our return journey, picking up points of interest as we go.
The field systems down there. I'll have to look up where that is. There's Coomstone Tor, right over in the top right hand corner there.
We're now on the downhill stretch of the route around Down Ridge, making initially for the Forest Inn. At last, we have some sunshine.
The views from here are absolutely phenomenal.
The last part of this route is a little tricky. The path winds its way through gorse before reaching the approach road to Hexworthy and the Forest Inn.
I think there are alternative ways to
do a great big shot
organise politics. Ways that would work in...
Doesn't it? Oh, I'm just so lucky there.
Look at Bellevator over there. Magic.
The views today.
Down in Huccaby.
Our goal is now St Raphael's Church to see the snowdrops. But first there is another part of history.
Forest Inn.
people sit and
There's no convention in other countries.
probably one of the
Jolly Lane Cottage. The last cottage that was built in a day, and it was yours.
Yeah, amazing.
So they waited till everyone went, all the farmers went to market, and all the neighbours got together. So it's not quite as obviously as it was when it was built in a day, but you can make out that end bit. So it was single story, and they've obviously added the upper story. But this is the last one.
The approach to Huccaby from Hexworthy is a very pretty route, particularly around the West Dart area and Huccaby itself.
The Dart. Not sure whether it's the east or the west Dart, but it's the Dart.
Huccaby Church dates back to at least the 1700s, if not earlier. In 1987, the church became a Grade 2 listed building.
No.
So we've come to see the snowdrops. We're perhaps a bit early, but the bank over there looks lovely.
The snowdrops surrounding the rear of the church are a picture. It's a time for our walkers to have a drink stop and look inside the church.
Oh, the left one this side. The left one.
I see Peter's getting a picture from a different angle. Just as you come off the bridge, on the right-hand side of the road is a stile. This is an alternative route back to the cars instead of following the road.
Brilliant. Yeah. Because I did start doing it, carrying all my stuff. Did you?
Visiting this thatched farm feels like we're going back in time. How long will it be before these types of farms disappear? Hopefully they will continue for a lot longer yet. We're getting fairly close to the end of the walk now. It's been a very informative and interesting walk, and I would like to thank Sarah for her input. Let's recap what we've done and where we have been. We started at Hexworthy, visiting the Gobbet tin mine, then went on to Sherberton, before going over the moors to Swinkham Farm, followed by Fairy Bridge, Dolly Treble's house, then followed the Dartmoor Way before turning and ascending down Ridge to Sker Ford, then visiting the Hen's Roost and Hoot and Wheels tin mines, returning via Horsford Cross, then following the downhill track to the Hexworthy Approach Road to Jolly Lane Cottage, Hexworthy Bridge, Huccaby and St Raphael's Church, returning to Hexworthy Bridge and finishing back at Hexworthy, a distance of approximately 8 miles. It's been quite a day and I think we've all learned something. Thank you once again, Sarah.